The Justice Department released the Implementing Rules and Regulations, or IRR, of the controversial Anti-Terror Law last October. DOJ assured critics that ATL won't suppress human rights in the country. However, IBP President Domingo CAYOSA and law professor Howard CALLEJA maintained that the law and its IRR are unconstitutional. This is the best of Agenda 2020. Okay, let's go to our first guest for today. We have with us the designated spokesperson. Medyo siya, first time, first in line siya. Hopefully long-term siya. Designated spokesperson of the Anti-Terrorism Council and also an Undersecretary of the Department of Justice, Undersecretary Adrian Ferdinand Sugay. Good morning, Undersecretary.
Good morning, Cito. Good morning to our televiewers.
Okay, for the purpose or for the purpose of informing the public, I'll give you the opening number, front act ka, as they say, no? Para at least kung meron kang i-roll out na information, I understand IRR for the anti-terror law has been firmed up. So if there's a particular announcement, unahin mo na, sir, and then I will ask you about all the issues being raised against it. Para masagot mo rin, we are not going to be combative. We just want to address issues and also give you the opportunity to inform the public. Go ahead, Undersecretary.
Thank you, Cito. I'm glad to hear that. Well, first of all, as we all know, the Anti-Terror Act of 2020 was signed into law last July. And has been in effect since. But under the Anti-Terror Act, the Anti-Terrorism Council with the Department of Justice is tasked to come up with the implementing rules and regulations within 90 days from effectivity. The 90 days, I understand, was up until last weekend, and we were able to finish the work, complete the work, and we were able to publish it in 2 newspapers of general circulation over the weekend, and have been able to register, submit a copy, certified true copy of the implementing rules and regulations with the Office of the National Administrative Register at the UP Law Center. So right now, the law as well as the implementing rules and regulations are already in effect. And may already be used by the Anti-Terrorism Council and our law enforcement agency. Hopefully not to address specific incidents of terrorism, but more to prevent terrorism.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's it. I can now go to the certain points of question. Okay. Sige, Yusek. Let me just go through this, ladies and gentlemen, para makasagot ang DOJ, no? Wait a minute. Petitioner said the provision creates new grounds for warrantless arrests and grants the Anti-Terrorism Council, a purely executive body, judicial powers to authorize arrests. What is the reaction of the DOJ to that issue?
From our reading of the Anti-Terror Act, and also when we were interpreting it for purposes of preparing the IRR, we really did not see any grant or whether unauthorized, unlawful, or undue grant of judicial authority to the Anti-Terrorism Council, particularly with regard to arrests. The Anti-Terrorism Council, we want to be very clear about it, has no authority to order arrests. Under Section 29 of the law, what it does, what the ATC does, is to authorize a extended period of detention. Section 29 is detention without warrant of arrest. It's really it's for operational purposes. It's for purposes of ensuring that when a suspect is apprehended for being a suspected terrorist, that the Anti-Terrorism Council is able to order the law enforcement agencies or to authorize them to continue surveilling, or maybe that's the wrong term, maybe to continue talking to the suspected terrorists to find out, to continue to investigate, to find out whether or not there are other plans, and whether or not he has other persons with him who plan to commit acts of terrorism. So when we talk about arrest of this person, this is pursuant to the rules on warrantless arrest under the rules of court. So it's there, Cito. So like, for instance, he's caught in flagrante delicto or in the act, things like that. So it's there. It's the arrest. Section 29, as far as we're concerned, has to be read consistent with the rules of court on warrantless arrests.
Okay, kumbaga, nahuli ka in the act o may pinaplano kayo or naturo ka ng isang nahuli na, and therefore, under the rules of court, the police or the military actually are authorized to act to prevent the commission of a crime or the further or continuing commission of a crime. So, nasa batas na yun.
Nasa batas yun. Maski ikaw dito, pag may nakita kang terorista dyan, it's something is being committed in your presence as a citizen under the rules of court, you can arrest that person. That's a warrantless arrest, and that's under the rules of court.
Okay, so yung ATC, the Anti-Terrorism Council, they are simply going to say, well, hinuli nyo na yan under the law, under the provisions of law. We are simply validating or authorizing the detention of this person kasi caught in the act naman yan. So walang abuse of authority yung ATC. But here's the question. The Anti-Terrorism Law changes the period of detention from 3 to 24. Yun pa rin ba yung provision right now based on the IRR o nabago ba?
Ay, hindi ganun yun. Cito, no, we cannot go beyond the IRR. What the IRR says, we cannot go beyond the law. What the law says is that the detention can be extended up to 14 days plus an extension of another 10 days upon a sworn certification submitted by the arresting officers. So total 24.
Okay. Now, may yung another issue being argued is the provision of the law lowers the constitutional standard for arresting a person from probable cause, kumbaga hinahinala na, may batayan na para hulihin yung tao, to mere suspicion. Parang itong si Cito mukhang terrorist to, hulihin nga natin. Parang ganon. What's your reaction to that?
Hindi naman, kasi nga, when we say it's warrantless arrest, consistent with the rules of court, ang standard niyan, Cito, is still probable cause. That is our position, and that is consistent with the rules of court, saka yung judicial pronouncements dyan, yung jurisprudence, it's still probable cause. Kung walang probable cause, then you have no cause to arrest. But if the Anti-Terrorism Council, di ba, upon reasonable suspicion, yun yung sinasabi dyan, suspicion, thinks that maybe there's cause for an extended detention, 14 or 10 days, they can authorize it.
Okay. Now, there's this provision that I don't know, please confirm na lang kasi honestly, I haven't read it, Yusek Sugay, and I am, as they would say, acting ignorant here for the sake of everybody na hindi nakabasa, The IRR requires, law enforcers to submit a sworn statement to secure authorization from the Anti-Terrorism Council to conduct warrantless arrest of suspected terrorists and to detain them from 14 to 24 days. So itong sworn statement, affidavit ba ito at sino yung tao, who is the person required to submit this, and are they going to be held accountable based on their sworn statement? Kasi alam mo na, let's be fair, in the past kasi medyo may mga hulid up, may mga false accusation, etc. Pero ito mukhang maganda yung provision ng IRR. Kailangan may sworn statement. Is it an affidavit? And who issues it? A team leader, supervisor, chief of police, or whoever?
Yung sworn statement, affidavit talaga yan, ano? Para, it's supposed to be under oath. Normally, that would be issued by the team leader, ano? So, but we leave that to the internal arrangements, ano? Yung operational issues. We leave that to the law enforcement agencies. No? But with that certification, that sworn statement, they are bound by the statements they made. Lalo na yung team leader, ano? So, in the event that there's a violation of the sworn statement, any allegations, pero hindi totoo dyan, and you end up detaining longer than you need to, or no longer than you're supposed to be authorized to, may katapat yan, Cito, very heavy penalties under the Anti-Terror Act.
Okay, quickly na lang kasi alam ko may kasunod kang interview. I have to respect that. There's this issue of constitutionality on the 24-day detention, that it violates the 1987 Constitution that imposes a 3-day limit to detention. I know the IRR is based on the law. The law has been passed. How do you address this constitutionality issue? Because that is now before the Supreme Court.
Cito, there is nothing in the Constitution that limits the period of detention. What it says is that you cannot suspend the writ of habeas corpus. And there is nothing, even in international agreements or the UN Security Council resolutions, which says that the detention can be shorter or longer than it needs to be. In fact, in other countries, the detention is much longer, months or even years. As far as we're concerned, there's no violation in the Constitution. The petition for a writ of habeas corpus is not suspended. In fact, anybody detained continues to have that remedy. So if you feel aggrieved, you feel like somebody can file on your behalf a petition for a writ of habeas corpus. So the cause for your, among others, and primarily the cause for your detention or your arrest, may be inquired into by the judge hearing the petition.
Okay, now while the Human Security Act required authorities to bring arrested persons before a judge, the Anti-Terror Law and its Act and its hindi na act ito, hindi ba? Anti-Terror Law na ito and its IRR only requires notifying the nearest court within 48 hours. Undersecretary Sugay, are they also required to at least inform the next of kin or relative? Kasi alam mo na, ang worry ko dito, baka katulad yan yun sa mga sasakyan, totoo yung sasakyan mo, hindi mo alam kung saan mo hahanapin yung sasakyan mo, mas nakakatakot kung tao yung inarrest, hindi alam ng mga kamag-anak na na-arrest pala. And it's happened. I think you're quite young, so baka hindi ka martial law veteran. Ako yung martial law veteran, and marami akong kaibigan na wala na lang eh.
Oo. I understand, no? Medyo na naman ako noon. May malay na ako ng martial law, no? So, I understand, the concerns, ano? So, that's why what we did was not just notification to the judge, ano? And that is hand-delivered notification, Cito, kasi alam naman namin noon, di ba? That so many excuses, di ba? It did not get to the judge or what. So, we required hand-delivered, personal notice to the nearest court, and also, we required that within 48 hours, you're supposed to notify the Anti-Terrorism Council and also the Commission on Human Rights. So, abot sa kanila yung mga notices, no?
Paano?
Kasama yun.
Sorry, Yusek. Paano yung relative? Kasi, I mean, I think it's only fair and humane that we have a provision na you have to inform the relatives.
Yes. That's true. Pwede naman yun kasi yung constitutional rights mo naman, no? It's outlined in the IRR and in the law. It's all there. It's all intact. So you can get in touch with your counsel, even relatives. It's there. It's a given. It's considered written into the law.
Okay. Are you a lawyer?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Kasi I'm not a lawyer, no? Pero ang pagkaintindi ko is if the law is silent on the matter, it's not a given. Kasi tayo naman, in good faith, we are presuming na, hindi, may karapatan yan. Dapat malaman na makakatawag siya sa kamag-anak niya. Is there the provision of I'm entitled to one phone call?
It's there. It's part of your constitutional rights. And then
Yeah.
the law says that all your constitutional rights are intact. All your rights as an arrested person are intact, and are to be protected under pain of heavy penalties on the part of the detaining officers.
Okay, sorry ayoko maging makulit yung Sugay, pero I'm just curious as a journalist, which part of the IRR does it say specifically that all the inherent constitutional rights of the detainee must be observed and respected?
Oo, nasa batas yan, nakasulat yan dito. All the constitutional rights,
Pasensya ka na,
no problem.
para at least maiwasan na yung gagamitin pa ng iba para lumabo.
No problem. So nandito yan, well, at least under the implementing rules and regulations, there is a whole rule, on state guarantee of accountability and full respect for human rights. So nandito yung mandato ng Commission on Human Rights, and specific also are the rights of a person under custodial detention, which is really a reiteration of yung constitutional rights, or the rights of a person under custody under the Constitution. There are also issues here with regard to against torture, against the violation of the rights of a detainee, and also there has to be an official custodial logbook. There are crimes against unauthorized revelation, infidelity in the custody. Nandito yan lahat.
Okay.
It's under Rule 11 of the Implementing Rules and Regulations.
Okay, last question ko na lang, Yusek, kasi medyo yung meron daw provision itong IRR na malalagay yung pangalan mo sa listahan, majajaryo ka, malalagay ka doon sa website ng Anti-Terrorism Law, etc. Alam mo, ang worry ko lang diyan, my concern is that I have been a victim of same name situation. Meaning someone with the same name was charged with a particular crime or something, and every time punta ka sa NBI, naku, pupunta ka sa ibang department. Every time nasa Bureau of Immigration ka, pupunta ka sa iba. How do we make sure that there are no further victimization of poor individuals with the same name?
Alam mo, ano yan meron naman yan process of delisting, we call it. Once you're listed, once you're designated, there is a process of delisting. You have 15 days upon knowledge or upon being informed that you are part of this list to file a motion to delist. And there are certain grounds. One of these is mistaken identity. Things like that, or any other circumstance which would show that the basis for designation no longer exists. Things like this, it's there. So you have remedies.
Yeah,
so, nasama pangalan mo ron, pangalan mo si Antonio Santos, ano naman yan, and before naman you're designated, it really goes through a whole process.
Okay, just further clarification lang. When does a person's name end up on the list of suspected or actual terrorists? Kasi from what I understand, and you're the lawyer, a person is considered deemed innocent until proven guilty. Baka suspect ka pa lang, lumabas na yung pangalan mo dun sa listahan ng mga terorista.
Just to clarify at the very outset, Cito, when you talk about designation kasi, it's only primarily for purposes of directing the Anti-Money Laundering Council to go after your assets. And it's just based on probable cause. Pero there are three kinds, Yung una, there's a United Nations Security Council Resolution 1373 list of designated individuals and groups, so that goes through a whole process. You have Al-Qaeda and all similar groups, and that is merely adopted by our Anti-Terrorism Council, and based on that, you're deemed designated. There's also, like, for instance, requests for designation coming from the EU or some other country, no? The EU is a supranational jurisdiction. We also adopt that, no? Also, there's domestic designation, but which is based on probable cause. It goes through a whole process, no? So before you even find yourself doon sa listahan na yan, mahaba-habang proseso na yung dinaanan mo. No, hindi naman yan parang nagising lang minsan yung Anti-Terrorism Council, sabihin natin, sama natin si ganito dyan sa listahan. No, it goes through a whole process.
Kasi yun ang nakakatakot, di ba? Meron lang mag-file ng kaso sa'yo o may mag-file ng complaint, hindi pa umaabot sa husgado, naka-blatter ka na, pagkatas papasok na doon sa records ng some police group, and then before you know it, you haven't even been judged guilty or sentenced, and you already have substantially a record that is not binding.
It goes through a really, really long process, Cito. And particularly with regard to designation by the Anti-Terrorism Council, of course, they are all aware, no? You make a wrong designation there, you're all going to be held liable. I'm sure, di ba, kung sino man yung matama dyan is going to, raise a, real hell, because of, having been included in that list. And so we will ensure that the process is followed and that it is followed to the letter.
Okay, well, congratulations. I hope that the DOJ finalized the IRR, and I hope that it will be used judiciously, and I pray that the officials of the DOJ are going to have eagle eyes on the implementation. Thank you very much, Undersecretary.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Cito. Good morning.
Good morning. Yan po si Undersecretary Sugay, and he just clarified, Undersecretary Adrian Sugay, who just clarified certain issues regarding the IRR or the provisions for implementation of the anti-terror law. Let's go on with our second half of the discussion on the anti-terror law. We bring in now Attorney Domingo Egon CAYOSA, President of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, also a corporate and litigation lawyer and leading advocate for environmental protection, alternative dispute resolution, and human rights. Attorney, good morning sa'yo. Welcome back.
Good morning, Cito, at magandang umaga sa nanonood at nakikinig sa inyong programa.
Okay. Nadinig mo naman siguro yung mga explanation ni Undersecretary Sugay, and I am curious, as would be many people, what is the general sentiment of lawyers in the Philippines, you being the IBP president, regarding the IRR and the anti-terrorism law?
Well, what the lawyers of the Philippines, or any lawyer for that matter, would know is that the IRR cannot rise above the law that it seeks to implement or to clarify. And that's a very basic principle in law. As a matter of fact, Yusek Sugay and other officials of the Department of Justice have admitted that kung ano man ang gusto nilang ayusin dito sa batas na to, their hands are tied because the implementing rules cannot go beyond, above, or less than what the law prescribes. Unfortunately for them, the law has been challenged on constitutional grounds, so whatever they do with the IRR, it will be severely limited with the provisions of the law. And that's why most probably the details set forth in the IRR will also be similarly challenged logically by the 37 petitioners.
Okay, let's bring in Attorney Howard CALLEJA. He teaches law in various notable law schools, including Ateneo de Manila University. He has his own law firm. Howard CALLEJA, Attorney CALLEJA, are you there? Okay, there we go.
Good morning, Cito, and of course, good morning, Mr. President, Egon, my good friend, and sayang wala na si Yusek Sugay, also a co-Atenean, a good friend as well.
Yeah, okay. He had another interview so hindi ko mapagsabay kayong tatlo. But in any case, Attorney Egon CAYOSA has already, Attorney CAYOSA already pointed out, Howie, that, oops, nalaglag yung cellphone ni.
Oh, sorry.
Yan na, sinasabi ko sa inyo, basahin niyo yung tutorial ko sa digital while Howie is setting up his...
Ito
there we go.
pa. I'm back.
Okay. Howie, nadinig mo naman yung reaction ni IBP President. What's your reaction? You're one of the petitioners who went to the Supreme Court challenging the constitutionality of the law. What are your sentiments after hearing Undersecretary Sugay and going through the IRR?
Yes, a reading of the IRR, I agree naman with Yusek Sugay and IBP President Egon na since the law is to us patently unconstitutional, it appears that the IRR as well, which is patterned under the law, is patently unconstitutional as well. So the IRR cannot even cure the law. No, so they cannot go beyond what is stated, and as we said, na it is inconsistent with the Constitution. So a reading of the IRR would show the same, that the IRR is still and is also inconsistent with their Constitution and with our rule of law.
Okay, Attorney CAYOSA, what happens if the Supreme Court essentially decides it's unconstitutional? Does the entire law get flushed down the toilet? Or yung bang mga petitioners would end up just having their challenges introduced to the law? Paano ba yung sistema? Alam mo, igno tayo eh.
Well, the process is this, and the basic rules are this. Number one, if the petitioners raise issues with particular provisions, then that will be engaged. But many of the petitioners, mind you, say key provisions, and they cited them, are unconstitutional. And they also say, because these are key provisions, the whole law is unconstitutional. So the Supreme Court has to decide whether or not indeed the whole law is unconstitutional, or it will just invalidate some of the provisions and say the other provisions will stand. Because the general rule really is, if the other provisions can survive despite the declaration of unconstitutionality of some provisions of a law, then the law proceeds, minus those provisions that are declared unconstitutional. But in this particular case, the provisions attacked or questioned by the petitioners are really key provisions that if these are so declared unconstitutional, there's no sense continuing with the law. So that may be the possibility. So it now depends on how the Supreme Court evaluates and weighs the facts, the circumstances, and the arguments of the petitioners, as well as the Solicitor General representing the government.
Attorney CALLEJA, and I'll just ask you a question, and then after you answer this, free for all na, no? But Attorney Howie, matanong ko lang, no? There were 37 petitioners, akala ko 30 lang eh. 37 petitioners challenging many parts of the law. I'm sure medyo binasa mo na rin yung petition ng mga iba, also Attorney CAYOSA. Were the petitioners simply challenging portions of the law, thereby giving the Supreme Court a window to simply address deficiencies of the law, or is it really an attack on the entirety of the law so that it gets thrown out?
Cito, a reading of it now. We are 37 petitioners as of today. Some of them, like us, enumerated provisions that are unconstitutional. Some, as already stated by President Egon, calls for the total unconstitutionality of the whole law. So depende yan dun sa petitioners, and some of it because they already pinpointed important provisions there. For example, yung kay Dean Mel pointed out academic freedom, so that is additional to him. Or yung mga indigenous communities, they pointed out provisions that are unconstitutional to the indigenous communities. Ganon. So there are some specific petitions specific to the petitioner's cause or advocacies, for example.
Okay. Now, Attorney Egon, okay, sige, yan, sinasabi sa inyo, papatayin ninyo yung mga yan. In any case, Attorney Egon, regarding yung mga reaction kanina ni Yusek Sugay, he was basically saying the warrantless arrest, all the provisions of the law are based on pre-existing law. What's your reaction to that? Kasi parang hindi ko nasabi kanina, well, if they're based on pre-existing law, why do we need a new law? Pero hindi kasi ako lawyer eh.
Yeah. So
I lost you there, Cito.
No, the Undersecretary Sugay said the IRR and the anti-terror law is based on existing laws.
No, it's not based on existing laws. It actually repeals the Human Security Act in totality. So it is a totally new concept here because if you look at the totality of the law, it significantly and fundamentally changes the equation because as this Human Security Act or Anti-Terrorism laws that we had really rely on well-established crimes, and then because of the circumstance of
Okay. Yeah. I think we're losing the signal of President Egon. Howie, can you just catch it for the meantime until we fix
yes, Cito, no, as per Yusek Sugay, for example nga yung example mo kanina, Cito, na warrantless arrest. Yes, understood, we have warrantless arrest under our law. However, kung titingnan natin yung warrantless arrest under our law is when you have committed a crime, or when you have just committed a crime, or the police saw you committing a crime, yung tinatawag natin na hot pursuit. Pero dito sa anti-terror law, nakalagay doon, intend to commit a crime. So, even your intent, you're only suspected of intending to commit a crime. So, Cito, imagine, in the previous law that we have for warrantless arrest that we allow, you already committed a crime, or you had just committed a crime. So meron ng crime na na-commit. Itong dinadagdag ng anti-terror law, you are suspected of committing or suspected to intend to commit a crime. So ang labo nito, how can you even think of the mind of the individual? Wala pang ginagawa. Number one, no? Number two, when you are in the warrantless arrest under previously under our present law, you have to be charged immediately after arrest. Here, you have been detained under a warrantless arrest, and you are being detained beyond the required limits of the law, which is 12 hours, 18 hours, and 36 hours. Or in the extreme instance when there is no habeas corpus, 3 days under the Constitution. Here, under the anti-terror law, you are arrested without a warrant, and yet you are detained outside the 36 hours maximum, outside the 3 days maximum under the Constitution, and the ATL is given 14 days plus an additional of 10 days. So that's a total of 24 days, Cito, that you are not being charged of any crime. Worse, if you look at the IRR, ang nakalagay doon, they can arrest you, and if there is no notice from the ATC the arresting officer can ask for a notice from the ATC after your arrest. So inaresto ka na, wala pang notice from ATC. So it violates, again, another thing, because if you look at it, under our Constitution, only the judges or only the judiciary can issue a warrant. Now, technically, if they ask the ATC for a notice, yung notice from the ATC, that is technically a warrant. So, that is, again, outside the realm of our Constitution and our law, because nobody else can issue a warrant except a court. No, here the ATC is allowed to issue a warrant. And another thing that I see at the IRR, which I was bringing up even before during the signing of the law, is that they are always talking about the ATC. However, when you look at here, even the IRR in the ATC, it's composed of 9 members. So when the note, for example, the notice from the ATC, or when the designation of a terrorist as in the ATC, who in the ATC designates or gives the notice? Is it all 9 members? Is it a majority of the 9 members? Is it one of the 9 members? Hindi natin alam. So paano yan? Anong mangyayari ngayon? And when you delist, for example, 9 members say you are a terrorist, nag-apply ako ng delisting. Who delists again? All 9 members again? A majority of that? Paano na naman yan? And if you look at the ATC, nakalagay doon, the ATC has no quasi-judicial or judiciary powers. Malinaw to, very executive powers lang sila. But to decide who is a terrorist, who is there to be detained, who is there to be delisted, those are judicial processes. Paano na ngayon yan?
Okay, let's ask President Egon kasi tumutungo ka kanina, nagre-react ka, President Egon. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, the basic principle that is violated is the checks and balances, because under ordinary laws, criminal laws, and the Constitution, the executive may on probable cause, but the executive has to charge you within a specified number of hours and days, maximum in the Constitution, in extreme limits, to charge you before an impartial judge. The judge can independently, meron bang basehan yung sinasabi mong probable cause? In this part, so there's checks and balances. In this law, they throw away the checks and balances and allow the ATC, which is practically an alter ego of the president, because all the 8 members are alter egos of the president. They're cabinet secretaries, and the executive director of the AMLA is also in the executive branch, to decide that they can detain you for 24, maximum of 24 days. So walang
Okay. Medyo nawala ulit signal ni President Egon. Howie, what's your thoughts on the fact that the executive committee na sinasabi nga kanina ay puro cabinet members? I don't know, medyo is that written in stone that yung Anti-Terrorism Council ay puro cabinet members, or pwede silang mag-assign ng ibang tao? Kasi parang yung IATF, cabinet members. Pagkatapos ito, ATC, cabinet members na naman. Parang gumagawa na lang ng paraan to control everything with the same players.
Yes, Cito, under the law, which we question, the ATC is formed by 9 individuals. Yun nga, 8 cabinet members and the executive director of the AMLA. So that's 9 members. So cast in stone because nasa batas yan. So hindi sila pwede magdagdag o masama ng iba. They can have assistants or other people to assist them. Pero technically, the Anti-Terrorism Council, as defined under the law, the Anti-Terrorism Law, is 9 members composed of Department Secretary of Defense, Secretary of DILG, DOJ, a National Security Advisor, Executive Secretary, yon mga ganon, yun ang mga member, no, and others ng ATC. And as I said, that siguro dadagdagan ko yung sinabi ni President Egon, yun nga yung checks and balance, Cito, no? Kasi if you look at it, if you look at the membership, sabi nga natin, those are alter ego, those are cabinet members. For example nga, sinabi nila na determined by the ATC as probable cause. Eh, ang isa sa head doon, iba, DOJ Secretary. So, saan ka dadalhin ngayon? So, magque-question ka ngayon sa mga piskal or whoever na member ng judiciary, eh sila rin ang decide. So the people that decided you are designated as a terrorist, doon ka rin mag-aapela ng delisting. The people who decided there is probable cause to charge you or to put you as a terrorist, doon ka rin maghingi ng recourse to take out that, to question that probable cause. So the question is, how can you now question if they already decided that you are a terrorist or if they already decided that there is probable cause to charge you? Yun ang sinasabi natin, walang checks and balance. And to point out in addition, balance, kasi sinabi ni, going to the statement of Yusek Sugay that you expounded kanina, na yun nga, you give a notice to the human rights, you even give a notice within 48 hours. Cito, you remember, the word used is notice. You did not say that you are being charged in front of a judge. So the judge cannot even decide on your case because the judge only has a notice that you are incarcerated. Unang-una, there is no jurisdiction over the person because hindi ka naman sinusurrender sa korte. There's also no jurisdiction to the subject matter because walang kaso. So how can the judge decide on you? How can the judge even say or give any order in your favor? Kami bilang abogado, pagpunta namin sa judge na may notice, ang sasabihin lang ng judge, wala namang kaso sa akin eh. Anong didesisyonan ko? So yun ang tanong ko kay Yusek Sugay kanina. So kung may notice, anong magagawa ng notice? In that 24 days na nakakulong ka, anong cause of, anong recourse mo? Anong action mo para makawala ka? Wala. Tatanungin mo sa ATC rin. Ang ATC is the one that detained you and you will go to the ATC. Saan nga yung checks and balance doon? Who will check the ATC? And in those 24 days, Cito, if they did not charge you, pakakawalan ka lang, hindi mo man sila ma-charge ng unlawful detention or wrongful arrest. Because under the law, the only obligation of the detaining officer or the arresting officer is to notify the human rights and notify the courts within 48 hours. Yung kanilang wrongful arrest is kumbaga not being punished if they give the notice. Napakadali naman magbigay ng notice ito within 48 hours. Sabi nga ni Yusek Sugay, magbibigay ka lang ng information o ng letter. Di tapos na yung boxing, arestuhin ka, tapos magbigay ng letter, pwede kang i-detain ng 24 hours nang walang kasalanan. Yun ang isa sa mga ina-avoid natin among other things in this law, no?
Well, I have to give room for Yusek Sugay also regarding his position. Pero ang tanong ko lang, no, kasi kanina one thing that bothered me was that he couldn't really tell me specifically in black and white na may provision sa IRR na kung damputin ka o damputin ako, na the arresting officers or team are required by law or by the IRR to inform my relatives. And dito sa Pilipinas kasi parang walang the right to a phone call or the right to call my lawyer. Eh parang, kasi ang upbringing ko, or at least my knowledge of the law, if the law is silent, then it's not. Eh, anong thinking ninyo tungkol dyan, the absence of a specific provision?
Tama naman po yun. I agree with that, Cito, because clearly under our law, syempre pwede kang ino-notify naman yung mga abogado. No? Yung relatives, hindi naman nakasulat yan. Although, ginagawa yan ng police. Ang problema nga namin na sinasabi dito, pagpunta mo dun sa arresting officer o dun sa nag-detain, it's really up to his discretion. So, hindi kasi nakasulat. So, kung gusto niyang ibigay o gusto niyang bigyan ka ng phone call at sabihin niya, yung phone call ko, limitado sa abogado mo lang, hindi na sa kamag-anak mo. Di tapos ka na, sa abogado ka lang makikipag-usap. Bahala na yung abogado mag-inform ng mga kamag-anak mo kung alam niya. So, ganun yun. So, again, it would boil down to the discretion of the arresting or detaining officer. And I agree with you. Wala yun doon. But of course, under our law, they are supposed to inform, at least to give you a chance to call your lawyer, or to give it's a constitutional right to give you a right to inform, no? So kung ang gusto mong tawagan yung kamag-anak mo, pwede dapat pagbigyan nyo na tawagan mo yung kamag-anak mo. Pero kung gusto mo rin tawagan yung abogado mo, nasa sayo rin yun. It's really up to you. But it's not written there.
You were talking about accountability a while ago. Ito bang Anti-Terrorism Council, katulad ba yan ng ombudsman, ng other constitutional body na hindi mo sila pwedeng idemanda? Okay, I don't know. I think Howie's connection medyo suspicious na rin ako dito. Bakit pag ayan na, si Attorney CAYOSA. Attorney, paano ba ito? Constitutional body ba yung ATC na yan? Hindi pwede i-demanda, etc.?
No, it's not a constitutional. It's just a creation of the Anti-Terrorism Law. So, batas lang po yan. So, they don't have any constitutional immunity from suit. Except that, of course, what happens here is, since the law does not specify any liability on their part, then if ever you're aggrieved by any of their decisions, then you'd have to go through the general administrative law or the provisions of the civil code, or perhaps the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. Unlike the previous Human Security Act kasi, kaya hindi na-abuso yun despite some draconian provisions. Kasi very specific ang nakalagay. If you are detained by any arresting officer as a terrorist, suspected terrorist, at mali yan, at mali yung pagka-detain mo, they pay a fine of 500,000 every day. So ingat na ingat yung mga law enforcers. But this time around, you don't have that focused responsibility. Kung dinetain ka for 24 days at nagkamali pala, sasabihin, ay sorry, mali, sorry palalayaan ka na namin. During the course of but in 24 days, 14 days, or even just a day, there's so much prejudice to you. That also includes designation of terrorists. Kasi pag na-designate ka under the law, ipapublish siya. So, kung nagkamali sila, ano ang recourse mo? Just the general principles of criminal law, administrative law, or the civil code, which is, as every lawyer would know, comfort for somebody who has been prejudiced. So, without this specific liability, magiging reckless o magiging masyadong cavalier maaari ang mga desisyon ng ATC.
Okay, well, I'll have to end it at that. Attorney CAYOSA, Attorney CALLEJA, thank you for joining us this morning. We've run out of time, pero I do hope the Supreme Court gives this an independent assessment and independent judgment, kasi sobra talagang daming maapektuhan pag ito ay naabuso. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Cito, and thank you, President EGON.
Thank you, Cito. Thank you for everyone.
Okay, yun po si Attorney EGON CAYOSA, President of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, and Attorney Howard CALLEJA. One of the most controversial stories of the year was Congress's denial of the ABS-CBN franchise. Before the official decision was made, Buhay Party List Representative LITO ATIENZA and Cavite Representative Boying Remulla gave their insights on the matter. UP journalism professor Danilo Arau and former Ateneo School of Government Dean Attorney Tony Lavinia also chimed in on the issue. This is the Best of Agenda 2020. Nandito na po sa ating programa ang taong may buhay, laging makulay. Let's speak with Congressman Lito Atienza. Sir, good morning, sir.
Mabuhay at magandang umaga sa inyo, Cito.
Eh, pabata kayo ng pabata. Ano ba iniinom ninyo, Congressman?
Sineseryoso itong mga nangyayari sa ating bansa.
Okay, Congressman, pag binabasa ko po yung mga storya regarding your performance in Congress, I would call you the captain. Oh, captain, my captain. Kasi parang pilitan mo raw tinitimon. You constantly have to guide the conversation or the hearings in Congress to the matter at hand regarding ABS-CBN franchise. Can you please share your experience and observation regarding this? Nakailan ba kayo? Naka-12 hearings ba kayo?
12 at the hearing,
Oo.
12 hearings, 12 long, lengthy hearings.
Okay. Ngayon, ano po yung masasabi nyo sa mga pinagdaanan ninyo, kakatimon ng usapan dyan sa ABS-CBN franchise na yan?
Alam mo, una, ako yung nagpapasalamat sa iyo, sa iyong observation. At pakay ko lang naman, ituwid natin yung ating ginagawa. Para naman nasa loob tayo ng batas, sa loob tayo ng katarungan, katotohanan, at hindi yung kagustuhan lang ng ilan. Tayo Kongreso ng Pilipinas, so we have to be very careful, to be very, very responsible in the wielding of our power. Itong prangkisa ng ABS, talagang kapangyarihan ng Kongreso yan. So, we have to be careful in our hearings. Yun ang aking paalala. Palagay ko naman nanggagaling yun sa karanasan ko. Ang Kongreso, once upon a time, nag-abuso. Tapos, ginawa ni Mr. Marcos, inabolish ang Congress. I don't want that. I don't want that to happen anymore. Not even again. That Congress should be abolished by anyone. But if we show that we are not using our functions correctly and we are bordering on irresponsibility, talaga ito, may justify yan. So, pag-iingat. Galing na tayo dyan I came from a dark age of martial law and I don't want our people to suffer once again under that kind of a system of a dictatorship. So, yung aking ginagawa sa Kongreso, always, is just to see to it. Tama yung ginagawa namin. Pag tama kasi yung ginagawa mo, masisan makarating ang usapan. But you can defend it with your life if necessary. Pero pag mali, mali, hindi maganda. Itong ABS franchise, nag-umpisa ito sa bintang, allegations ng ilang congressmen na meron talagang serious illegal acts ng ABS on the matter of citizenship of the owner, on the matter of the Lopez's having acquired the network illegally, unconstitutionally. Yan ang sabi ni Mr. Marcoleta. Constitutional issues have been raised against ABS. So, nakinig ako. So, umpisa talaga nakikinig ako. Baka naman meron talaga revelations si Mr. Marcoleta. I had to respect the seriousness of his allegations. Pero dumaan ang dalawang hearing, paikot-ikot sa issue yun, wala po naman siya naipakitang illegalidad na mga nangyari sa ABS. Ganon din po yung mga bintang ng iba. Tax evader daw ang ABS. Those are serious charges. So BIR had to be called. Sila nagsabi, wala pong tax evasion case sa ABS. And in fact, it was elicited out of the BIR for them to say, ABS has been responsible in the payment of taxes. And in fact, they're one of the biggest taxpayers of the land, number 65 overall. So therefore, yung mga allegation did not hold water, were not proven at all. 8 allegations. Inisa-isa yan. Pinaikot-ikot. Talagang hindi ayaw tanggapin ng mga nag-allege na hindi, they're not succeeding. So, we spend so much time and people's money. Every time you hold a hearing, you spend millions of pesos.
Yeah,
So,
but
wala na patunayan. At this point in time, ang aking inaasahan, let's be fair. Because hindi ito issue lamang ng ABS. issue to ng fairness, justice, defense of responsible media, and strengthening media in general. Ayokong humina ang media katulad ng gusto ng ilang congressmen. Siran dahil sila'y na-criticize. Ako naman ay kinikriticize din ng media for so many times. I was mayor for 9 years and I came under severe criticism many times. Pero I never thought of closing down media because kinikriticize niyo ako unfairly. Ito, ganun lang. Para bagang ang logic, you criticize a congresswoman or a congressman, we will have you closed down. That's not good. Politicians, even Congress, the franchise giver, should not meddle with the editorial policies, editorial content of any media operation. I cannot agree that dahil nagkamali kayo, all right, that's grant. In a few instances, unfair ang ABS. Hindi naman siguro closure ang parusa dyan. Meron mga penalties na pwedeng ibigay, ipataw, pero hindi closure.
Makasingit, yeah. Makasingit lang, Congressman, ano? Kasi bigla akong natauhan sa sinabi mo eh. Yung sinasabi ho ninyo na about franchises, because we seem to have focused on Channel 2, on ABS-CBN franchise, but the power of Congress is on all franchises. Electric franchise, utilities, water utilities, etc. If this can happen to Channel 2, what statement are we giving? Because I'm just following your claim that after 12 hearings, none of the accusations were substantiated. We've wasted taxpayers' money. It amounts to no legal basis. And then now we're telling the world, if you come here to invest on a business that is dependent on a congressional franchise, mag-ingat ka. I mean, are the members of Congress not concerned with this? Kasi iniisip po natin yung term ninyo ngayon. But what about the succeeding term after 2022, after 27, etc.?
Correct. Cito, yan ang magiging masamang damaging and destructive effect kapag naganap, nangyari yung hindi tama, not on the basis of violations in the law, but on the opinions of some disgruntled politicians or the machinations of certain politicians. Yan ang ikinatatakot ko. The institution of media and the credibility of the nation will be affected if you can do that. Kung may napatunayang illegal, dapat tanggapin natin. If they have violated the Constitution, dapat talaga siraan. Hindi na dapat magpatuloy. Pero wala nga eh. Yan ang hirap sa programang ito. They have not proven anything. And the regulatory officers of the government, like SEC, BIR, Department of Justice, Immigration, they've all cleared the management of ABS.
But what about the failure of regulatory offices such as the NTC? I mean, wala naman po akong galit sa NTC, wala akong personal nakakilala sa NTC, but time and again pag nag-i-interview ako, I discover na kung anuman allegation o akusasyon laban sa ABS-CBN, whatever faults ABS-CBN are being accused of, it would have been and should have been addressed by the NTC. What will congressmen like you do about this? Kasi parang sila yung nagkulang. Ngayon, paparusahan mo yung 11,000 employees, sisirain mo yung reputasyon ng bayan dahil merong ilan na nagkulang dyan sa NTC.
I agree with you 100%. Kung ang pagkukulang nasa regulatory agency, yun ang aming silipin. Constructively, we can restructure the same and redefine their functions. Tama yun. I agree with that. But kung nagkulang ang regulatory agency, we cannot punish the people for that. Ang concern ko, Cito, another major concern is that at the time of the pandemic, we are going to cause thousands of people to become jobless. Wala na hanap buhay, kinikita nila para sa pamilya nila. That's not a correct situation. What we should be doing now is to provide more and more jobs. Yung logic na, kung hanap ka ibang trabaho, may isang senador yan ang sinabi.
Okay.
Yung senador, kung ikaw kaya tanggalan ng Senate seat mo, ano kaya feeling mo?
Nako, yun nga lang na madagdagan yung bilang ng senador sa Pilipinas. Nagwawala na yung ibang senador dyan eh. Pero maiba na. Nako, baka maagalit na naman sa akin yung mga tito ko dyan sa Senado. Final question ko na lang, Congressman Atienza. Are you confident that ABS-CBN will get its franchise? And if they don't, do they have other options?
Options, meron pa naman siguro ilan. All the way up to the Supreme Court if necessary, because how can you punish someone who has not been found guilty? Ang example ko rito meron ka dinimanda. Sinabi mo, ikaw nagnakaw. Ikaw ganito. Nagdilitis na, nagtatrial sa korte. Talagang binusisi yung allegation mo. The man was not found guilty. In fact, sabi ng mga otoridad, hindi po totoo yan. Sabi ng pulis, hindi po totoo yan. Therefore, therefore, I punish you. Total banishment forever. Hindi. That is not justice. So, there are a few recourses, even if Congress does not grant. But the point is, mahirap na yan. At saka, ang ipaglalaban na natin dyan, masyadong mahirap mag-anak. Samantalang ngayon, nasa kaway pa namin. Ito yung pag ginamit namin ng tama, ang aming, well, they call it power. Ako hindi power. If we use our responsibility correctly, then there is no need for further elaboration that may ensue, that may happen if we are unfair and unjust and incorrect.
Okay. Yeah.
Kaya, ang aking paalala, huwag natin dagdagan ang hindi na natin nakita.
Okay, pero
Imagining violations.
Congressman,
They were not proven.
pasensya ka na, Sir Lito, kasi medyo ubos na ako ng oras. Pero yung katanungan ko lang, sabi ni Dean Lavinia, he feels ABS-CBN won't be given its franchise. What is your forecast?
Ano sabi ni Professor Dean?
Hindi makukuha ng ABS-CBN yung franchise.
Cito, you know me, I'm a straight talker.
Yes, sir.
Hindi na feeling ko. Ito lahat ito scripted. Lahat ito, it's all show. But the end, and ABS will be deprived of their franchise. Ang nakikita ko, nababasa ko. Ngayong malinaw yung 12 hearings nangyari, walang napatunayan. Yesterday, Speaker Cayetano spoke and gave his own summation. Pero meron siyang nilabas na ibang issue which was not even discussed during the hearing. Are we going to allow a media network, a giant network, to be also owning so many businesses? Sila nagkokontrol ng negosyo, sila nagkokontrol ng media. Hindi dapat payagan yan. Kung sabi ko, that's an entirely new issue that the Speaker is bringing out. That will influence a lot of congressmen. That was meant to influence the congressmen. So we will be deciding on the issue, on something, on the franchise, on an issue which was not even discussed, for or against. So I see the writings on the wall. It will not be given.
Okay. Thank you very much, Congressman Lito Atienza. Very sobering closing statement. Please continue to stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy. God bless you, sir.
Ikaw din, Cito. Let's all survive. God
Okay. Thank you. And that's Congressman Lito Atienza. Medyo, ayun po, the writing is on the wall, quote unquote. that ABS-CBN may not get its franchise. We will now move to our last and final guest for this week. We, on the other side of the fence, so to speak, we will speak with Congressman Boying Remulla of the 7th District of Cavite here on agenda after a quick, yun na pala, pinasok na. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning, Cito, at magandang umaga sa lahat ng nanonood at nakikinig sa atin.
Kailan ba tayo huling nagkita? Parang UP Village Park Boys pa nung huli kitang nakita.
Must be more than 35 years ago.
Oh my God. But anyway, just so people know, the Remullas and the Beltrans go a long way back. We were neighbors in UP Village. Yung tatay mo, tatay ko, parehong mahilig sa sabong. And now we are playing our roles in society. So I want to be fair with all sides. So Congressman Boying, the platform is yours. Kindly explain to our viewers why you have taken such a strong position on the ABS-CBN franchise.
Cito, I had to set the example to my colleagues not to be afraid of a very powerful conglomerate. Kasi alam mo, Cito, sa totoo lang, maraming natatakot sa ABS-CBN because they have destroyed people so many times throughout history, and Cito, I'm really willing to fight it out because this is the legacy that we have to leave to our people. Kinakailangan makita nila na hindi naman lahat ng tao naduduwag pagka malaki ang kalaban.
Hindi ka ba napapaisip kung na baka naman meron akong hindi nakikita because your own brother, the Governor John Vic of Cavite, ewan ko kung fake news yun o totoo ba yun, na parang nagsabi siyang, Kuyang, this ABS-CBN thing, press freedom is bigger than the Remullas, bigger than you, bigger than us. Sabi mo nga, you need to stand your ground, but do you ever get second thoughts that tama ba itong ginawa ko or sinusunog ko ba yung political career ko doing this?
Cito, I'm very happy with what I'm doing and I'm not afraid of the future. It's just that it's my turn now to tell our people that enough is enough. That these oligarchs cannot reign in our country forever and then put us in their mercy. Nakakaawa naman po ang taong bayan. They would rather pay taxes to the NPA than to pay taxes to our government. Nakakalungkot po ang ABS-CBN.
Okay, now, regarding all of that, let's focus on the hearings and the result of the hearings. Ano po ang na-determine ninyo as far as, you know, your position? Kasi magbobotohan daw kayo. Tuloy ba today or next week pa yung botohan ninyo?
Today.
Okay, now...
that's why we had to adjourn the joint committee yesterday so that we could get the committee to meet, the franchise committee to meet on its own because it was a committee before. Hindi naman pwedeng paghaluin, pagbotohan na. So today we will convene the franchise committee. Okay,
and then what will happen?
Actually, I don't know. I don't have the agenda. I'm just prepared to go there to cast my vote. If people will, I hope wala nang daldalan, botohan na lang. I think enough has been said about the issue. And but people have to
but Boying, sabi kasi ni Congressman Atienza, nung natapos na kahapon yung mga hearing nyo, biglang gumawa ng summation si Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano. And parang he talked about ABS-CBN being a big conglomerate with so many business holdings. And sabi niya, parang naiba na yung direksyon ng pinag-uusapan. Is there a possibility that you won't be voting today and it will go into a second round or, into the 13th hearing, so to speak?
I don't think so. Tapos na eh. Actually, I was the one asking the committee na ituloy pa natin.
Okay.
May mga gusto pa kaming gustong i-erase pa sana. Kasi, Cito, hindi pa lumalabas yung dokumento ng DBP. Kasi ayaw naman i-waive ng ABS-CBN yung mga debts na kinondone ng ating gobyerno para sa kanila. Alam mo, talagang nakakalungkot yan, napakasakit yan sa Pilipino. Bilyon-bilyon po ang nawala sa taong bayan pagkat ayaw po ng Lopez magbayad ng utang. Kaya we wanted to continue with that until we got the DBP documents. Meron pang iba Sito. Hard to spell out each and every one, but that I remember DBP so clearly.
Okay, so your bone to pick right now is this unaddressed issue of loans unpaid by the Lopezes to DBP to float ABS-CBN. Bagamat nabasa ko na sa ibang columns, I think in particular yung kasama namin si Buchanco na nagsabing hindi kasalanan niya ng Lopezes, parang inikot-ikot yung loan na yan hanggang sa na devalue or whatever. But I'm also curious to find out. But what other reasons are you going to stand on when you cast your vote?
Well, Sito, nakita mo naman yung tax avoidance scheme nila. That is so unbecoming of a franchise holder. Binigyan ka na ng opportunity ng gobyerno gamitin mo ang patrimonial property of the state. You undertook to pay the proper taxes. Tapos, gagawa ka ng mga ganyang mechanism. Yung Big Dipper, Sito, napakasakit ton.
Yeah, pero
yung idea, Sito, yung idea ng PESA, meron kang 164 na tao na ang itatransfer mo sa kumpanyang yon ay 2.5, 2.7 billion a year. That is so reprehensible. Sabihin mo legal. Sabihin mo legal. Sige, sabihin mo legal. Pero kasi nahuhuli. Pag nahuli na yun, illegal na yan. Kasi nga, Sito, that's money laundering.
Yeah, okay. Wait a minute. Kasi ikaw media ka rin. You may be a congressman but media ka rin. Nagraradyo ka. I think DWIC ba yun o DCRH?
I go RH now every Saturday.
Oh, RH, di ba? So, naintindihan mo yung sitwasyon ko. I have to counter or to cite yung sinasabi naman ng iba. Now, yung sinasabi mong money laundering, tax evasion, etc., sinabi ng BIR, wala namang kasalanan. One of the highest taxpayers pa ang ABS-CBN. Parang ang nakikita ko, parang may mga problema dito. If I follow your trend of thought, the people who are dropping the ball are the regulatory agencies. If there's truth to your claim na money laundering, AMLA, tax evasion, BIR, yung tungkol sa violation of franchises, NTC, and yet nothing is coming out of Congress to rebuke these regulatory agencies.
Sito, that's the beauty of our system of government. Kasi nga, the job of Congress is oversight. We have to look over these agencies. We have to look at what these agencies are doing. And we know that the idea of regulatory capture is not just an idea. It has become so entrenched, and ABS-CBN is living proof of what regulatory capture means.
Okay, so
niya, no? Yung sabihin natin sa BIR, no? Nagkaroon ng tax compromise. From 2.8 billion na dapat bayaran, naging 180 million. That's very alarming, Sito. NTC. Actually, yung pagsasarado ng ABS-CBN was really the litmus test. When the NTC gave them a cease and desist order, it should have been for everything, including, it was really for everything, including TV Plus, the digital channel, because I was able to read, examine the provisional authority by which ABS-CBN was able to broadcast on a digital platform. Pero, Sito, puro palusot pa rin ang lumabas nila. They falsified, they were attempting to falsify documents until they admitted hindi pa sila tapos sa pag-construct ng isang korporasyon na magiging, black timer nila. In effect, Sito, they're black timing on their own sister company, which did not even have the permission of Congress to transfer the use of factory rights of ABS-CBN. Sito, talagang sobra tong regulatory capture. The BIR, the PESA, lahat yan. Talaga only Congress can do this eh. Kaya nga ginagawa namin. Walang ibang pwedeng gumawa ng aming ginagawa ngayon.
Okay, does this, kasi ang forecast ni Dean Lavinia, hindi makukuha ng ABS-CBN yung franchise. Ang forecast ni Lito Atienza, the writing is on the wall, hindi bibigay itong franchise kasi sarsuela lang itong mga hearing na ito. Now, my question, Boying, may mga lalabas bang matitinong batas out of this? Because I mean, if we not me kasi ano man ako I have to be neutral as the anchor here. But if ABS-CBN will be punished by not giving it its franchise, will the country or will the nation even at least benefit from laws that will correct the accusation?
Actually, Cito,
Yeah.
meron na kaming batas na pinasa
Oh.
na actually addressing fiscal incentives eh. Even before the ABS-CBN hearings eh. Nahuli na namin ang kalokohan na nangyayari sa PESA even before ABS-CBN. And
Okay.
ang problema, may mga tao sa Senado na ayaw gawin yung dapat gawin tungkol dito. That is that's a problem with their lawmaking system. But the Oversight Committee can call the attention of government, of the Executive Department, about malpractices or practices that should not be there, that are very detrimental to the interests of our country.
Okay, I will give you that you are trying to correct the violations of law and franchise. Pero kami ba, hindi ba kami dapat matakot sa mga pinagsasabi ng mga kasama mo? I don't know if you said it also. I mean, between friends, we can speak freely, I believe. Marami kang kasama na naglabas ng sama ng loob sa media na unfair treatment, pati si Congresswoman Janet Garin, although we are very civil and polite with each other, I was shocked kasi yung parang yung naglabas ng sama ng loob against media, should we be concerned that our members of Congress don't seem to understand that we are just doing our job when we call out mistakes or when we call out faults or when we criticize?
I have no problem with criticism from media, Cito. I have no problem with that. The problem really is, yung ano lang, I'll tell you about Janet Garin. No? Hindi namin siya maaawat sa kanyang personal na agenda. Pero I don't really agree with her that you should bring out your personal experiences because this is bigger than her. It's bigger than us. Diba? This is about the country. But just the same, no? It just shows how human we all are. There are people who were really hurt and they brought it out, probably in the wrong forum, but that is beside the point. Eh. The point really is, ABS-CBN has already gone to practices which should not be there for big corporations in our country. Yung ginawa nila sa PESA, isa na yan. Yung ginawa nila na Amcara Broadcasting, binastos nila ang Kongreso, hindi sila humingi ng permiso, na gamitin yung ibang prangkisa. That is talagang blatant disregard for the laws that we pass. Pag ganito ng ganito at napakalaki nila at binaliwala nila yung mga batas ng bansa, sino pa ba ang tatawag ng pansin sa kanila? Di ba takot na nga lahat? Kailangan meron talaga manindigan eh.
Yeah, pero obviously ang sentimento wala namang kinakabahan sa Kongreso, walang natatakot sa ABS-CBN or else none of this would be taking place. Now, the question is tama ba yung forecast Congressman Remulla, no franchise for ABS-CBN and or wala bang, kasi alam mo naman yung society natin and I guess corporate culture, let's fix the problem if we can fix the problem. Let's work together. May resolution pa ba of issues or is closure the only solution on the table?
Hindi pa kami tapos ito eh. After this, we will be looking at contempt proceedings. We will be looking at other investigations about the falsehoods that they did in the hearings. Hindi pa kami tapos. Kinakailangan talaga matuto tayong sumunod sa batas at gawin natin yung nararapat para sa ating bansa. It's the first time in history this is happening, Cito, and I'm happy I'm part of it.
Okay, and you can honestly say ito hindi because inutos ni presidente or because may personal na atraso sa inyo ang Channel 2 ang ABS-CBN.
Honestly, I can say that. I'm a lawyer, Cito. Pinag-aralan ko ang issues. Pinag-aralan ko yung issues. And whatever I spoke, I asked there and I spoke about, pinag-aralan ko, Cito. It's not a bias. It's just a calling to do the right thing.
Okay, well, I will respect that. And as the saying goes, we all live by our accomplishments and by our mistakes. And I hope that in this case, it is for the general good. And I hope you stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy. And I do wish that magkita naman tayo under more pleasant circumstance than COVID-19. God bless you, Congressman.
Thank you, Cito, and good morning to all. Maraming salamat po.
Okay, yan po si Congressman Boying Remulla of the 7th District of Cavite.